Okay, let's get some more analysis now from Dr. Bharat Pankhania, who is a senior clinical lecturer at the University of Exeter Medical School. He joins us from Bath by Skype. Thanks for being on the News Hour, Doctor. It's almost been a month since we've been living with Omicron. It's gone so quickly. What have we learnt in that time about this new variant?
We've learnt quite a bit, and there's a lot more to learn. The bits that we've learnt obviously give us some cause for concern, which is it is significantly more infectious. Also, we've learnt that it bypasses the antibodies made by the vaccines thus far. The third bit that we are not 100% sure about is it less disease-causing universally? In South Africa, we noticed that it is less disease-causing, but there are lots of things that would explain it, which is younger population, several bouts of infections gone through the population, etc. So what we really want to know is, in the older population in other parts of the world, is it more disease-causing? And if so, what are the additional precautions that we should be taking?
Okay, so still a fair bit to learn about this new variant.
Yes.
There seems to be a real patchwork of measures and restrictions across the globe, which vary depending on which country you're in. How much of this is a problem?
It's a big problem because members of the public globally, and we are a global population now, always start to compare the USA with Europe, with other parts of the world. So, for example, the strategy the United States has taken is test, 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 and test. The Europeans are taking the strategy of test and isolate. And in other parts of the world, it is, for example, in the Far East, it is serious, assiduous contact tracing and isolation of cases as well as the contacts. So there is a difference across the globe, different strategies, and we will find out. We will find out in the process of time which one works best and keeps the economy as well as health safe. No one strategy is the perfect one, but this natural experiment will enable us to move forward and adopt the best practice.
And one of those strategies, Doctor, is these booster shots. AstraZeneca is the latest to come out and suggest a booster against Omicron. But surely these pharmaceuticals have a vested interest in the need for extra shots. So how do we as customers navigate that conflict?
Absolutely, and this is why we need international adjudicators to look at the data and then make the decisions. So with respect to the need for boosters, which is the strategy adopted by the Europeans and Israel, the evidence is that with the vaccines that were given 6 months ago, the level of antibodies is dropping. And the other bit that I mentioned earlier is that Omicron is bypassing a significant number of the antibodies so created. Therefore, what the booster does is it increases the level of antibodies, and those antibodies that are increased will then be able to neutralize the virus with the selected number that are still effective against Omicron. So that's the scientific basis behind boosters. But I hear you. And the same issue is also with regards to promoting the therapeutic drugs that are online from Merck and from Pfizer. And as you would say, the pharmaceutical companies have an interest in promoting them. And my view is that we need to assess it by independent scientists before we start using them globally.
Indeed. And just quickly, Doctor, before we move on, I spoke to a clinical virologist who suggested in 5 years or so the coronavirus will be treated like a common cold. Is that the timeline, 5 years?
Nobody knows. Nobody knows. And coronaviruses are not necessarily the ones that mutate and become innocuous. So I would counter-argue and say, we don't know, because look at the measles virus. It's been there for thousands of years. It is still here. And maybe the coronavirus itself may be here, but we are fully immunized and we've got therapeutics, and therefore we can move on away from it.
Let's hope so. Thank you very much. Dr. Bharat Pankhania, a senior clinical lecturer. Thanks for joining us on the News Hour.